Hey there, my name is Josh Diotti here with Customer Relations, and today we are here to get you ready for delivery day. That's right, it's finally here. And so I am sure you have watched a lot of the component videos to help you decide if the product is for you or not. And so the goal of this video here today is to help educate you on how to use your van to make sure you are ready to go. And so slow us down, turn closed captions on, rewind, rewatch the video completely if you need to. Make sure you take notes, write any questions down so that we can best use your time here on delivery day. So with that being said, let's get started.
We're on to power. Are you ready for that?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, like your house, all of your outlets are 110 or 120 volt AC powered outlets. But all camper van batteries, same with like small electronics like your phones and computers and stuff, they use DC current. So whether you get AGM or a lithium system, it's all using DC, and we need to convert that into AC power to use any of the wall outlets around your van. So I'll show you where those are first. So the first one is actually behind us on this overhead kind of spot on the headliner there. So mounted pretty high up, it has 2 AC ports and 2 USB ports, so people can charge electronics or TV, can be plugged in, stuff like that. The second set is behind the sink, kind of where that fridge is being powered right now. So between those 2 silver bars, right behind the kitchen pod there.
That's cool.
Yep.
How does this move?
There are L brackets that are fixing it to that silver bar.
So
there.
it's really bolted, and if you
2 bolts and can move side to side.
Cool.
The third set is over here. So just above the Espar, you have your outlets. Even if there is a seat put in here, they're going to work. There's nothing wrong with them. They're just be harder to access, but you're not going to pinch any cables or have to unplug anything, when moving seats in and out. Above it are AC breakers, so for the outlets around the van.
Oh, these are breakers that would pop or whatever.
Exactly. They're all 15 amp breakers for this set. Yeah. So you have 5 outlet locations and you have 4 breakers. One of them just doubled it. So 1, 2, 3. And we have a 4th one that's on this wall, kind of tucked behind those brass, connectors there for water. And then a 5th one out the very back where that green water jug is.
So water heater plugged into that one?
Yes. Yep. So you have 10 total AC ports, 10 USB ports that we toggle on and off, with our inverter system. Yep. There's only so many pockets through here that we can really have them recessed. Considering we're keeping all the factory trim and headliners and stuff in here, but they're easily, accessible. And I've had people even put like power strips if they wanted to, add a little bit, more functionality to them, depending on their layouts and stuff. So basically, all of those outlets are going to be on when we turn our inverter on. If we, leave it on while we're driving, parking, camping, that's totally fine. The only reason you would turn it off is if you don't need power from those outlets anymore. It would save just a tiny bit having it off, even if we're not pulling power from those outlets. Our inverter is just on and off for outlet power around the van. This controller is going to do that. But I was just trying to mention that, all batteries are going to be DC. That's your lights, your fans, your everything's all DC powered. But if we're using those outlets, we need AC power for them. All your coffee maker, your hair dryer, your laptop charger, those plugs for them are all AC powered. So we were just turning on and off the wall outlets like you would in your house, kind of, in a sense. So the way we do that is with this button right here, inverter on and off. If I get rid of everything, that's the only thing you'll really be touching on here. It's just that for outlet power in your van. The cool thing is that as soon as you plug in shore power, it automatically kicks it on. It automatically starts charging your batteries. It doesn't even let me turn off the inverter. It's just taking over, so everything's just done and already there for you. The entire time you're driving, you can have your cooler charging. Everything like that is totally fine. So, any questions about things you might plug in or stuff right now?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, because you already asked the toaster or microwave.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You have a 2,000 watt limit, which means all of those outlets combined together, you can continuously invert AC power for 2,000 watts. So when you're buying accessories or you're wondering what you already have, if it can work in here, on the back of it or on those little tags, if it's like the hairdryer, normally they have them like hanging off of there.
Yeah.
It will say like it uses AC or DC power, and then it's going to say what the maximum wattage it's going to use is. So if it has multiple settings, you know you're using less than that maximum. That's usually like a startup on the highest setting, it's going to hit that rated amount. So for reference, a laptop charger like on a MacBook might be 100 watts out of that 2,000 watt total. The cooler might pull 50 to 60 watts on
It's
here.
not very much.
Yeah, but
Is the cooler sucking all the time? Like,
No.
is the cooler plugged in somewhere and it's sucking all the time?
It's only running the compressor though when it needs to cool itself.
Yep.
So
And it
it's
stays pretty
it's
easily.
basically it's basically doing like an LED in the meantime.
Yeah, oh, that's cool.
So yeah, those are smaller components. A hot plate or a water kettle might be in the lower thousands, like 1,200 or so.
Yep.
The hot water heater is about 1,400.
Yep.
But that's like kicking on and then it's going to kick off.
Yep.
So that continuous inverted amount that you can do through here without shore power plugged in is 2,000 watts. So if you overload it, it can handle it for a little bit. It just can't continue to do that. It'll beep for you and let you know that it's time to unplug that, or it'll shut down the feature for you.
And you can always run the van while you're, if you gotta like blow dry 50 dogs at the dog line, you can run the van.
Yeah, is that what you do, Dave?
Oh,
50 dogs?
No.
101 Dalmatians at the dog.
Oh yeah,
And
sure.
so does it blow the fuses if you're overusing?
So
or?
if we overloaded an outlet that's tied to one of those breakers,
Yeah.
that breaker would trip first,
Yeah.
but that might not be over the max limit for the inverter itself for all of it.
Okay.
So if like we had, for instance, 2 hair dryers on one, that might blow a circuit
Yep.
or the breaker there. We just hit it back. There's no like fuse we replace or anything. It's as simple as just like pushing it out and back in like
Yeah.
that. But if you put them on multiple outlets and all ran them, it would overload the inverter system, which would just beep and then say like overloaded or something. So it's set up pretty easy. Plug stuff in, use it, see how it works for you. But just every component will say on the back what its maximum amount of power it draws is. So.
Yeah.
We're good at that. We'll be good with that. Like, we were already talking about loads that we put in here to not.
Yeah, and a lot of people just aren't sure, and this is how they learn a little bit about those components and stuff.
Good to trip the breaker once in a while.
Yeah, you're testing your limits, so then you can dial it in from there.
Yeah.
So yeah, on or off for outlet power, it doesn't even affect us right now because shore power is plugged in. It automatically inverts, automatically starts, charging the van and everything there.
Let's get the little indicator there that says shore power is plugged on.
Well, that is just for a setting. That isn't saying shore power is plugged in.
Oh, I see.
So the 2 most important things for me today is how to turn on and off the inverter, which is just that top button right there.
Yep.
And then the next is how to tell you are charging your van. So since you might not always be at a campsite now, you might just pull over on the side of the road, see an outlet from a building and plug into it. How do you know that outlet is actually charging your van? The way you'll be able to tell is that this second line here says multi-stage. It's either going to say the multi-stage, absorb, bulk charging. It's telling you what phase of charging we're in. If we are not plugged into anything or something is not powered at either end, it's going to be blank. There's going to be nothing there.
Okay.
So that's what it would look like when you're just out and about at a campsite, not plugged into anything, just using the inverter. It'll be blank right there.
And right now it's telling us it's doing 2 amps.
So the charging function of it says charge. If we weren't charging, it's not going to say charge.
Cool.
It's going to say inverting.
Yeah, that's
It will charge up to a rate of 100 amps. So
Wow.
right now, we are basically just so full. It's just maintaining what we're using inside here. So very, very simple to use. Yeah, very simple. One button for outlets. and then turn it off if you're not using your outlets.
Yeah.
Yeah, that easy. So there are some settings in here. I'll tell you just 2 of them, which you might never change. But this shore power one, so I can raise and lower that arrow. I'm going to hit it on. This is what we can limit the shore power max to. So most outlets in your home or garage, some campsites and stuff, they're 15 amp. That's the style we use for the extension cord.
Yep.
We use a super thick one in that normal 15 amp style because it's the most common outlet you'll find.
Sure.
But some campsites might not have a 15. They might only have a 30 or a 50 for bigger RVs.
Yep.
And that is a physically shaped different plug. So you can still plug into those. You would just need an adapter that just changes it from that to your style. A couple bucks, maybe 10 or so at a Walmart or RV store or something like that, or Amazon. And then you can still use it, but it's not going to overcharge your van. We're still limiting what's coming into the van. So you were just using that adapter to pull power from that when they don't have your style of the cable. There's no overcharging or anything that's going to happen because of that. So just the bigger RVs might have multiple rooftop air conditioners, a lot more electronics. They need more current, more power coming into them. So the little things like this, we don't need to go heavy on one way of charging because we charge the entire time we're driving. We're charging from shore, we're charging from solar. So we want it to be the most common style cable so you can use it in the most places.
Yeah.
If you're plugging into a friend's house, like you mentioned, maybe they have Christmas lights up, or it's connected to multiple outlets in their garage or something. You might trip their breaker because we did it. There was only 2 amp buffer between that 15. So we can lower that down if needed, and then they can reset their breaker,
that's
and
really
then
cool.
Still charge, but just not pulling in as
Yeah.
much.
That's really
But
cool.
we leave it at 13. It's more than enough to run any electronic inside of here and still charge the van.
There's probably a book on that and that big paperwork thing.
That is something that I wrote with the help of someone else, and it's basically this walkthrough,
Yep.
just written down for you, kind of a quick reference.
Yep.
Our customer support page has articles about everything,
Yeah, I saw that.
and then any manual that came with the van will be in your glove box,
Oh, cool.
but we have them digitally online.
Yeah,
So
I'm a manual.
retain just as much as you want today,
Mhm.
but the 2 most important are how to turn on and off outlet power and how to tell you're charging. Everything else you're going to be just pressing buttons and using as you go.
Yeah.
So the last thing in here that I'll tell you about is the low battery cutout, and this is just going to beep at you when we get down to 11.5 volts. There is a kind of usable range of power in here, and they consider 11 volts as no more usable power, and then 13 volts as kind of 100% charge.
Okay.
So the majority of your charge, if we're coming off of 100% full battery, unplugging and starting using things, is going to be in that 12s for a majority of the time. But as soon as we get into the 11s towards the end, it's a more rapid kind of drop off. We prevent it from dropping below that. We have kind of a disconnect system that will prevent damage to the batteries at 11. But this is set to just audibly beep and give you a warning on here that you're getting close to it.
Oh, that's cool.
It's stopped me a few times where I just plugged into an outlet and thought I was charging and started using a lot of the components inside of here, and then it started beeping pretty quick. It was too much load. I wasn't charging. It's like a reminder to go check things. So,
Yeah. That's cool.
just gonna oddly beep at you when you're getting low. But that's it. One button on here, on and off for outlet power, and it won't even let us do that right now.
Yeah.
So very easy.
Awesome.
So yeah, we're at the point where
Seems
we're gonna.
there's another one of those down there too, right?
That is a solar controller.
Oh.
Same company though, so they're
Oh, yeah, I
labeled the
noticed
same.
it.
Yep. That one we don't have to touch for anything. It's just telling us if solar's working.
Oh, cool.
So, feeling okay right now?
Yeah.
One button, outlet power.
Yep.
Turn it off when we're not using it from anywhere. You can leave it on the whole time. You can turn it off and never use it. Doesn't affect fans, lights, basic operation side of here. It's just for anything plugged into an outlet.
Cool.
So this is our driver side box. It's where we house all of our power. These are your 3 batteries that power our system. They are wired together in parallel, which means they're acting as one big battery system together, 300 amp hours total. And the basic charging layout of your van is you have your factory car batteries up front, and you have these batteries back here. They're directly connected together, and in the middle of those two is a relay that's just popping open and then closing to charge the systems or to disconnect the systems. So it's voltage based, so when we are charging, like just turning on your car, the alternator is now charging your car battery. It gets above a certain voltage, it will click, connects. We are charging this system the entire time we're driving. As soon as you park, turn off your car, that car battery is going to go down a little bit. Click, disconnects. This system will not be pulling from that car battery anymore.
That's the click thing I've heard about.
Yep, the click every now and then is just this relay that is right here, right against the side.
Yep.
It's just latching together to close the circuit and then open the circuit based on voltage. So whether we are driving, whether you're using shore power, as soon as one of those two battery systems gets above, their standard kind of, neutral kind of spot when we're actually charging, it will click and then connect the other system. So that's happening automatically for you. You don't need to interact with that at all. But since the system does come with an override switch, we install that as well. So that would be helpful if like you left the key in the ignition or something and you have nothing, like as soon as you get out of there and try to start it, but
start the van with this.
But you like start pressing your lights and you know you still have battery back here.
Yeah.
The system's still charged.
That's cool.
Well, we can override that, manually engaging that relay, and then you're basically able to jump start your car from this system, or vice versa. You ran this system completely dead, you forgot shore power wasn't plugged in, you're using the hot water heater and stuff, and it just drained this below like a usable level. You can engage that relay because it will never want to do that automatically and drain your other battery. We can override that and then jump start it from just turning on the car.
How do you override it?
So
you take it, you open that and switch it?
Yeah, we have two little plugs right here that allow us to access in here.
Yeah,
so we have one for the relay and one for the override switch.
Yeah.
It just says on, auto, off.
Yeah.
It's in auto, which we leave it in 99.9% of the time, but you're able to override that if needed.
Cool.
We have an article about it as well, but it's really for like more emergency situations.
Yeah.
Normal operation, it's just clicking and connecting and disconnecting whenever you're using the van. Most commonly it's when you're driving, so you'll hear that clicking. So 2 battery systems automatically connected with the relay that's just connecting and disconnecting as needed. Your van charges 3 ways, from just driving like normal car does, from plugging in shore power, and then from solar. So the rate of charge, if we listed those from first to third, would be shore power is always the fastest. It's constant, higher voltage, so we can charge up to a rate of 100 amps from it. Second will be the car battery while we're driving. It can kind of fluctuate up and down, and it's not always charging, once you turn off the vehicle. So that's second. And then the last, which isn't really comparable in speed, would be solar, where it's just mostly maintaining your charge, or slowly replenishing you throughout the day.
But kind of always
always add it for you.
Yeah.
And during peak times of the day with, good, sun and stuff, and your panels are clean, you can offset, minor electronics inside of here, like coolers and stuff like that.
Sure.
So, and then all 3 of those will work together. If, we're driving and solar's coming down, it's adding to those 2 at the same time. So, yeah, 2 battery systems, automatically connected, 3 ways of charging, all automatic for you. So, only thing you're interacting with is that on and off for outlets.
Right.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I keep saying that.
simplifying.
Yeah,
That's good.
I keep saying that.
That's important, the key.
Yeah, and in here, we can get into here, but there's no reason to actually get into here unless we were making changes or checking the system or something. It's mostly just for show. So we have that relay right around this corner. Like I said, I can go from the top and access it. And it's working automatically for you. We have a DC fuse block for components around the van that are powered. There should be an extra slot on there or 2 if you wanted to add something to it as well. Maybe you want an extra 12-volt cigarette style charger for some kind of component you have, or some boot warmers or something like that. But you can still expand on what we have there. And it's labeled as well.
I could run the boot warmer right off the power, right off the outlet.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Or the Espar, you know,
Yeah.
blowing that heat out, you know, can warm them up pretty quick. And then at the very end, that is your inverter. So that controller on the headliner controls that right there.
Yep.
And the most common reason for an inverter is to convert the DC current from batteries into AC for your wall outlets, like we mentioned. But that one is a 3-in-1 system. So it's providing up to 2,000 watts of inverted power. If you forget, it does list it right on there, which is handy. It's also providing up to 100 amps of DC charging capabilities for these batteries. And then the third thing it does is what's called like the shore power transfer switch, meaning when you plug into an outlet or anything or campsite, that is AC power. So your AC powered components inside of here, when we're connected, bypass the batteries as their source of power, and they're being powered directly from that source of shore power. So big air conditioners and stuff, like we say, they have to be plugged into shore power to run. It's because it's taking the stress and load off these batteries and being powered from that shore power. So
What's the life of those batteries?
3 to 5 years, depending on how far down you run them.
Yeah.
We have a cutoff switch now, like I mentioned, at 11 volts.
Yeah.
So you're not really going to ever, you know, deplete that further than it, unless you were storing it for a long period of time after it already, you know, hit that cutoff.
And to replace them, we would get them from you.
You don't have to get them from us. You can get them from a local spot. You could get them from like an interstate distributor.
Same thing, they'll go right back in there.
They will go right in there. If the nice thing about the AGM system is that the overall cost of them is much less than a lithium system.
Yeah.
You can have them tested at a Batteries Plus or a automotive shop if you were questioning the health of them.
Yeah.
And if one of them, for instance, failed, you can still run the system off of 2 of them. So overall, they're about $180 each versus $2,500 each for the lithium, the smaller lithium batteries. So so you can get going along your route. There's no reprogramming or anything like that. So for the 3 to 4 day, 5 day, you know, trip person, perfectly fine. And if you're driving between sites and stuff, you're charging the whole time. So
I picked this instead of lithium because I don't have a lot of electrical stuff to be running. You know what I mean? Like,
and if you have an idea of electricity and kind of like what your power, you know, consumption is going to be like, you know, you can manage this just fine. The lithium, I think, is great for someone that wants the most power. Also, the person that knows nothing about it, because it just simplifies everything for them, much like how our button does. But you just get menus that show you every single data point, like temperature, time remaining down to the minutes. You know, it just does all that for them.
Yeah.
So it can seem like less intimidating getting into this. But in my personal van, I have a smaller Transit Connect. I run just 2 of these batteries for the last year. I have a Connect with Vandoit components in
That's
it.
cool.
That's the off the menu kind of thing.
Yeah.
But mostly, you know, I'm using one of these if I'm going on bigger trips with my partner or something. We're going to Arkansas for a weekend and stuff. But that's my like solo mountain biking overnight kind of, you know, camping vehicle. So.
That little white thing, is that a CO detector?
Yep.
Oh,
So, yeah. Do you have any questions about what's inside of here at all? Feeling okay? Cool. The only spot we need to get in here for would be those plugs if you were working with that relay at all. So down below, these are our 3 additional kind of accessories. So you mentioned the white one. We'll talk about that first. That is your carbon monoxide and liquid propane detector.
Oh, cool.
So if you're using a Mr. Buddy, you know, heater, which we don't really recommend inside of vehicles, but not everyone gets an Espar and they want to, you know, heat their van some other way. It'll detect that, a Coleman 2-burner cook stove.
We'll be doing that.
Yeah, exactly. So it will, if there was, it's not so much the using of it that's the issue. It's like if there was a leak and it's not being combusted, you know, that's when the levels are higher. We had to get rid of our forklifts and get electric ones because it was setting off the vans on big shipment days. So I promise you they're very loud and they work. But also does carbon monoxide on there.
Run the fan later in there, make a copy of the burner or whatever.
Yeah. And some people use electric kettles, some people use butane, some people use propane. It just to each their own. And you know, we have that from day one. You already have that peace of mind. Note there is no battery backup for it like you would in your house, like a 9-volt. It is directly powered to our system. So if you were out of power and the system was shut off, it's not going to work. But your Espar is not going to work either.
How
So
often does that get replaced?
it says on there in the world's tiniest font a whole bunch of like info on it, and it says 60 months.
60
So
months, okay.
5 years.
Yeah, the sensor gets dirty and then
Exactly. If you're in the desert, doors open all the time. You know, it might run it down earlier, but you're always able to add a secondary, just freestanding one in here. But from day one, we have one. It does, you know, 2 gases for us, which is really helpful. And I promise you, it'll wake you up if it's going off. It's loud. So at the other end, you have 2 direct, just DC powered outlets. One is for a cigarette style 12-volt, and then the other one is 2 USBs. So those are not related to the inverter on or off. Those are always on for you. So if you plugged your cell phone into there, it's going to be charging in the morning, regardless if you turned your inverter on. Any of those wall outlets are only powered when you have the inverter. For instance, your cooler, the Dometic cooler, comes with 2 power cables. They don't know if you're using it in your house, your camper van, or your Honda Civic or something. So it's currently plugged into the AC just for ease. But if you were not using your inverter for anything, like you didn't have TV on, hot water, none of that on, we could plug it into that 12-volt, turn off our inverter, and save just a tiny bit of power. So it's there if needed. But ever showers, air compressors, some things, you know, might use that style. So we have one. Okay, so the other one right here is our solar controller. And before we talk about it, there is nothing you need to turn on or off for it to work. It is just always working if light is detected. And if you're adding more solar or removing it, there's no settings that need to change at all. So it's just feedback. It's connected to the solar and connected to the battery. So it's going to tell you battery and solar info. And the only button we need to press on it is B, just lightly, to read 4 different options. So first one is voltage. Second one is incoming solar, a percentage, which is easier to understand than the voltage for some people. And then all time, the total solar added. I'm going to leave it on this one for you because that tells you if solar is working or not. There's a sun icon and means light is detected. And then the bottom number is how much is coming in. 1 to 3 is normal in the morning or evening. Upwards of, you know, 14 or 15 peak times of the day, clean panels, no clouds in the sky. If you see a moon icon during the day in 0.0, something's probably unplugged, you know, or not working. So I like leaving it on that one for you.
That's cool.
Solar's kind of something that gets a lot of people kind of, you know, confused. They don't understand, but it's really simple. It's taking light, turning it into photovoltaic voltage, and it's going down through a positive and negative cable, just black and red, to that controller. And then from there, it's going to the battery. The only difference is that we split that one going to the panels with the connection down here, so you can add in multiple spots. So it's always on, always working for you. There's a Bluetooth app if you want to see a little bit more info, but you don't need to touch that other than just to read those 4 different pages. So another thing we don't have to touch. Yeah, but it does tell you if solar's working, and that's kind of the main feature that I use it for.